Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again. So, having to do this video from the road, so I've decided to have to kind of mix it up a little bit with the way my old videos used to be done, using the slideshow format, kind of combined with the style in which I've been doing videos here recently. So apologies for that, but, you know, y'all don't really need to see my super animated face to enjoy what I have to say or hate what I have to say, which will definitely be the case for some in this particular video. So without any further ado, let's just get right on into it. We are here today to talk a little bit about the recent reveals that we've gotten for what the subsequent sequels to Zack Snyder's Justice League would be. Now, I'm not going to be going through all of it, like plot point by plot point, because there are plenty of websites that cover that if you want to go and look at it for yourself. Also, Brad, the DC Universe Geek, did a great video where he literally just read the whole thing out and discussed it a little bit. So I definitely recommend checking it out for yourself, because I won't be covering everything here, and you'll see why with this next sentence. So yeah, after reading through it very carefully, I can honestly say I don't think I've ever come across storytelling this convoluted with this little uh, respect or attention paid to the characters and their development and making those characters cohesive with the story that's being told. If it wasn't clear to me before, which it was, this made it very, very clear that Zack Snyder has no comprehension of who these characters are supposed to be outside of them looking cool. And I won't argue with anyone who says that, you know, in his version of this movie or these three movies that we now have information about, there wouldn't have been cool things because that's his bread and butter. He's made a whole career out of doing things that are cool. They're surface level cool, and that is the beginning and the end of it. Again, he knows how to set up a shot, he knows how to shoot things, he knows how to integrate the CGI, all that kind of stuff. But those things do not make a good movie. Zack Snyder, he literally plays the same game as Michael Bay in terms of giving you lots of things that look cool with characters that are so shallow and hollow that if you were to step in them while walking down a path, you wouldn't miss a footstep. You wouldn't even notice because that's how shallow they are. Man, like, it's really bizarre the reaction that this has got too, because a lot of people have gotten real excited since this has been released because they think that, like, now that, you know, they got the Snyder Cut on HBO Max, now they're releasing all this information, so that means that they're going to make those movies. But the problem with that is, if they had any intention of making those movies, they wouldn't have told us any of this stuff. Because essentially, now by telling us all this stuff, they would have to completely scrap every bit of that and start over new if they were going to actually make those movies. The other issue, the thing that people keep ignoring, is when you actually go through this and read out the plot points, about half of what needs to be set up for these other movies to happen would have happened in the Flash movie, which now at this point is a completely different movie. The Aquaman movie, which again tried to distance itself from Justice League and what, not just Joss Whedon's cut, but everything that Snyder established about Aquaman in the Justice League movie. Like, pretty much the Aquaman movie threw all of that out. And then also things that were supposed to be set up in the next Wonder Woman movie. And as we've seen, they've also tried to distance themselves as far as possible, with some people even stating that this isn't even the same Wonder Woman from that movie, that this is an alternate universe Wonder Woman, which we all know is bullshit. And it's just a like hand-wavy way of them being able to say, oh no, don't worry about Justice League, that has no effect on this. So yeah, like, not only could they not give us these movies even if they wanted to, like, now they wouldn't want to. There'd be no drive to do it. And let's go ahead now and just talk about a couple of the things that they mention in this movie that point, or like in the synopsis of what these future movies would have been, you know, that kind of point to, as I was saying, Snyder not having any comprehension of who these characters are. So we were going to get to see evil Superman, and the things that were going to make him evil is that while he was dead, Bruce and Lois hooked up, and Lois got pregnant with Bruce's baby. So that's one thing that, like, you know, causes a chink in Superman's armor. and then the next piece is Lois getting killed. Um, and these things would have automatically turned Superman into the version we see in the nightmare sequences from Batman versus Superman. Again, not having any like it would take so much more to push Superman past that point, and it's fair to state that not this version of Superman, because this version of Superman's a whiny little bitch who let an entire city get destroyed because he like was too busy being a sad alien to do what was right. Um, like, and then he just murders a person that he doesn't have any need of murdering. There's a million other ways to deal with Zod and Man of Steel, and he just didn't even bother to even try to think of any of them. Again, just putting more people at risk. And of course, throughout this, we see the continuation of Batman being a murder crazy, like, psychopath. Which, and again, to like people who will point out, Batman kill people in the comics, yeah, but that's been a long time, and nowadays when we see Batman kill people in a comic, it's like not the main continuity. Um, but again, like, to those people's credit, not only has Batman killed people in the comics at times, literally every live action Batman movie we've got, except for the Adam West movie and Batman and Robin, has Batman murdering people. Even for as much as Christian Bale's Batman pontificates about him not murdering people, he kills people in those movies. He straight up murders Harvey Dent in the second one, and in the first one he blows up a whole building full of ninjas. But no, they're fine. They made it out all right. He knew exactly where to blow up the building so that nobody would get killed. Bullshit, okay? In all those movies, Batman kills people, and that's one of the things that's infuriating, because that means that we've never actually gotten a comic book accurate Batman in as many years and as many movies as there's been. And again, this would have continued that trend, because again, as we saw in like his previous, like, Batman just murders people outright in, Batman versus Superman, and then by the next movie, off screen somewhere, he's had a bunch of character development where now he wants to be a symbol of hope because Clark inspired him, even though we never saw that crap. Which again speaks to what you would have seen in terms of character development. As you go through and read these plot points for what his further ideas were, you'll notice that most of them come out of nowhere. Like, there's nothing in the story that motivates that character change. The story is that there's a character change, but there's not any catalyst for it. And if there is a catalyst for it, it happens so internally in a character that we, the audience, never hear about it. And in some of the few cases where we are actually shown things that are supposed to attribute to character development, we still don't get the connective tissue. And mind you, these are just plot points. But from everything we've seen from every other Snyder movie, we can bet that there wouldn't have been any of that development in there. A great example is the moment that we've all seen from Batman vs. Superman where Flash breaks through the Speed Force to warn Bruce. He's talking about Lois, and he says he's too early or something to that effect. Like that, now we know from this that what he's supposed to be doing is showing up and telling Bruce that when Lois says the baby's not his, she's lying, and that this is somehow going to completely change the entirety of everything that follows afterwards. Like, that bit of information, but we never get told how or why that would change Batman's actions in context of the overall story. It literally seems like just meaningless dribble that's thrown in. It's like the Martha moment. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a dramatic piece of information that they can use to transition into the next thing they want to do, but it doesn't come organic. It doesn't flow from the characters. It doesn't flow from how they're established or how they've changed in the story. And for the big climax of these movies, like in the final installment, we would have seen basically Themyscira, the, people of Atlantis, and the surface dwellers all teaming up to fight the hordes of Darkseid, and they were even going to get help from the Green Lantern Corps, kind of mirroring the sequence we saw at the beginning of Justice League, which I'm sure will still be included. But again, we have a similar issue of like, yeah, the Green Lanterns aren't established in this universe, so why do we even care that they show up? Like, because it's a cool visual. That's the only reason it matters, is because it's a cool visual. And they're trying to steal the idea from like Grant Morrison's run on Justice League. I believe it was his, where he basically did a story arc where every man and woman and child on Earth is imbued with superpowers so that they can all fight off an invasion. I'm sure that's what they're going for, but again, from reading these plot points, we never get an indication that that's actually what's happening. They want to, again, like, project this image of like unity and solidarity without caring about the smaller characters that like would make that meaningful, which again is a problem in every single one of these movies. Like like one of the things that makes these characters so relatable and grounded is the world they live in and the people they interact with and the people that they save. And we never really get to have any emotional connection with any of these characters. So, like, it all feels a little bit hollow, and this is the same thing. In this big, long treatment, there's never anything that addresses how the regular people of the world are dealing with all these things, so it really wouldn't matter on an emotional level with all the humans, like, banding together. Like, it's not gonna be, the final countdown or something like that. That's not the way it works. You have to set those things up, and they're not set up anywhere in here. Um, and finally, the last couple of things that just blew my mind beyond reason were one of the big, like, things that's supposed to be like an audience cheer moment or something, or it's like, not even an audience cheer moment, but one of the things that's supposed to be really satisfying for the audience is at the end of all this, Cyborg was going to get an upgrade to his tech so that he could basically make himself look like a human, which completely defeats the purpose of him being a fucking cyborg, man. And also takes away anything interesting or unique about him. Like that point of him feeling like an outsider, but yet still being the heart and soul of a team. That dichotomy is what makes him interesting and fascinating as a person. Not just as a hero, but as a person. And again, like Snyder and all of them pretty much ditched the idea of him being fun and like lighthearted to a certain degree, but they all wanted to focus, oh, he's so sad. He's a sad boy, mad boy. And then you also lose the ability to use the Cyborg as the analogy character. Like him in classic Teen Titans comics, there's so many great stories that they told about him being a robot that were, allegories for racism and prejudice. But now you can't actually do that with the character. And a lot of people I know will say the same thing they said about the Titans show, where they made, Starfire just look like an African American woman and made Beast Boy look Asian, and basically said that that's the same thing as them being orange skinned or green skinned because they'll never really fit into society. And on one hand, I'm going to say bullshit on that. Like, yes, you can still tell stories about prejudice and racism with them looking that way. Obviously, you can, because that's something that exists in our world. But the whole point of allegory is that not everybody wants that message shoved down their throat. And the people who need to hear that message the most are the people who you will touch through allegory. That's why the old school X-Men stories work as well as they do, as opposed to some modern takes on it. Like, the power of allegory is basically able to take the concept you were trying to push and remove it from all of the social stigmas that people walk into it with. Be able to remove it from any preconceived notions that people have. The whole idea in frickin' Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is the thing that makes him different makes him special, And that works because he's an anthropomorphized reindeer with a red nose. If he had just been a person of color, that story wouldn't have reached nearly as many people at the right time that it did to make them then take that knowledge into race relations. Because again, you have to keep in mind, today we're so inundated with so many, social justice issues that there are a lot of people who are just turning their brain off to that stuff because they feel so much of it is done by self-serving people who don't really care about the messages they're trying to preach. And especially when it's done in comics and TV, it's always very heavy-handed these days, which just adds to that feeling. So yeah, like, not only does this decision completely like undermine the character of Cyborg, just like it, this whole story and the whole Snyderverse undermines every single one of its characters, it also takes away all the things that are interesting, unique, and powerful about him as a storytelling tool, like, geez. And then finally, the thing to top it all off is that, the whole thing would have ended with like a 20 years later cut where we find out that Bruce Wayne has died, doing something heroic as Batman. And Lois would eventually tell her son the truth about his father being Bruce Wayne and take him to the Batcave because Gotham needs a new Batman, and then we would have a Batman with superpowers, theoretically, that Snyder could go and make as many movies about that person melting human beings who are like robbing old ladies or like purse snatching with their heat vision that he wanted, because, that would be really cool, wouldn't it? Again, completely misunderstanding the whole point of Batman at its core. And like the thing that really bothers me about this, and again, like I'm aware that a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people who really love the Snyderverse, and it seems like a whole lot of them are people who their main intro into the DC universe proper was not the DC universe proper, it was Injustice, which is already an alternate version of these characters that are so skewed. And you know, the truth of the matter is, like the whole Snyderverse, if this were like if we'd already had a few solid Justice League movies that depicted the characters the way they were supposed to be, like and were truer to the spirits of the characters and didn't just shit all over them, then I really wouldn't be as opposed to this because I love alternate takes. The Injustice universe is really interesting, but I don't want that to be the version of these characters that people immediately think of when they think of these. I don't want when people think of Batman, I don't want them to think of someone who will gladly murder 20 or 30 people in a day and not, you know, even think twice about it. Like that's the Punisher or Wolverine. That's not Batman. If you want those kind of stories, there are characters for that, and it's not Batman. And the same goes for Superman. You know, literally every the characterization of every major character within this like outline of his, you know, whole trilogy is so far off base that it is nauseating. Um, yeah, and that's about it. Yeah, guys, I'm not gonna sit here and bitch about this even more. Again, it looks sounds like there's some really cool ideas that he had throwing around, but again, this is the guy who took Rorschach, a character who's supposed to be anything but cool, and his main goal with that character was to make a character who was a hateful, anger consumed, racist, misogynist, homophobic character and turn him into something cool that they could sell action figures of. So, yeah, you know, like that sums it up best. Like, he is the king of cool, perhaps, but cool is not good. Cool is, you know, what you gravitate towards whenever you know, you're a 15-year-old boy or a 13-year-old boy, you know. But when you get older, you need things of more substance. And again, these movies are made PG-13, even though we've been told that there might very well be more rated R versions, you know, things of that nature. So I know that they're trying to appeal to a younger demographic who want things edgy, but the problem is, like, we live in a world that could use the message that these characters are supposed to stand for. You know, like, Batman is supposed to represent the potential inside each and every one of us, you know, and there's nothing of that in this version of Batman. You know, Superman is supposed to be a beacon of hope, showing us something that we, you know, should be working our way towards, and that is not this Superman. You know, they can kind of try to clean him up after he comes back from the dead, but the damage is already done, and truthfully, Snyder doesn't give a crap about any of that. He just wants to see strong, buff dudes flying through the air, shooting lasers at each other and punching each other in the face, while sometimes fighting a monster or two. Not to mention Amazons in as little clothing as possible. That's all that he really cares. That's what's going to sell tickets, and thank God these movies aren't actually going to happen. You know, I've said it once and I will say it again. Fuck the Snyder Cut. I don't care. These versions of these characters are awful. It's just the. Oh my God. Yeah. F the Snyder Cut. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope y'all have a good one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of you are really excited for the Snyder Cut. And you know what? More power to you. I hope you get everything that you want out of it. But I know some of you are thinking the same thing as me, where this is nauseating and God, it will kill me if for the next 20 years this is the way that these characters are perceived. Let me know that in the comments too, but try to keep it civil, guys. Once again, thank y'all very much for watching. I hope y'all have a good one. Nerd Scum, out.